I'm Atalanta, and this is Soul Connection. Soul Connection is a series dedicated to teaching you how to tap into and connect to your soul on a deeper level. We will be exploring spirit versus soul, mass meditation, chakra energy, vibration, and connecting to all. We will learn how to tap into our soul and figure out what our purpose is on this earth in this lifetime.
We're back on Soul Connection with Prism, who has been walking us through the chakras and why it's so important to keep them healthy, how they relate into connecting with your soul and allowing your soul to come through and speak to you with clear messages. And last episode, she walked us through the bottom and the center, the middle one. And tonight, we're really going to be exploring the top chakras and how everything, connects to your soul. So welcome back, Prism.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Can you just do a little brief explanation of the top three? And then, of course, we'll get into it in more detail here in a second.
Sure. So as we're moving from our heart space into our throat, this is the place where we actually begin to work with the Akasha. This is where we get ethereal with it. This is a place where we connect to our intuition. This is a place where we connect to the higher everything. We go from the body and we go from connection with others into this deep space of spiritual truth and what that looks like for each one of us. The elements, when we've worked up to the heart and we've worked with all these beautiful elements, right? The heart is very much a water space. This is a space of love and comfort. But as you're getting up into your throat, now we're talking about the ether. This up in here, that's what this is all about. It's the ether. It's how we connect to spirit in different ways. We can connect through the body just as well. But when we move into this space, I first started learning how to do that when I started doing poetry and I started doing spoken word. And I was terrified. And then I started realizing that there's something else going on in here. It's not just me writing poems. There's a connection that's happening while I'm processing all of this. What is this? And when I first started learning about the Vishuddhi, about the throat chakra, it made so much sense. They would talk about so distinctly that this is spiritual creation. This is the piece that connects you to your third eye and then further into your crown. This is also the piece that brings a different sense of voice into the world. It's not always a physical voice. Sometimes your voice is being heard through what you're doing and how you're treating others. It's being heard through the type of practices you create. Connection happens in the silence, deep connection. And that's a big part of the throat chakra work. Teaches us when to speak and when not to speak. And I've learned a lot in the last 6 months about just sitting in the silence.
Me too. And it's hard for me sometimes because I'm a talker. I talk fast and I talk a lot. And I get excited, I get excited and I just want to, and then I want to share and I want to hear what they have to say. Then I want to respond. And when I get upset, I'm da 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 da. It gets bad. But I am teaching myself to just listen, wholeheartedly listen. Not that I didn't listen before, but it's different now because I'm connecting completely with the person or people that I'm talking to. And sometimes being quiet just makes a better statement. I mean, I'm not talking about in negative ways. I'm talking about in positive ways, just being quiet and being comfortable in that silence. When you're with somebody that you are comfortable with, you're connecting on an energetic level and not on a physical level. And I think that's amazing, just to be able to just look at somebody and have that connection, communication. And that's still the throat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This was a really difficult one for me to learn, and it took me a lot of practice. And it wasn't practice to sit in silence with myself and spirit, it was practice to sit in silence in groups. Because that's where, especially if you're energy sensitive and you've got all these big feelings going around, this entire room of people is sharing, and now all of a sudden it's gone completely silent, and you feel all these different, these ebbs and flows from all these different people, and your want to speak, your need to speak is all about, oh, I just don't want to feel this way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I've like deep breath in and just sitting in silence with other people, especially in a circle, can be very difficult. And some people find it easier to be quiet in a group of people than they do by themselves. Um, I definitely moved from, I felt it not easier necessarily, but when I first started learning silence was when I would go to a Buddhist center and I would sit in silence with other people for silent meditation for 15 to 20 minutes. And at first it was maddening. I thought I was going to go crazy.
That's so funny. I'm learning how to sit in silence right now, not just, in communicating, but just because I don't really watch TV because I'll binge watch, so I don't really watch TV. But I'll listen to podcasts like in the bathtub, driving down the road. I'll listen to podcasts. But I am practicing being quiet and just being right now, enjoying my bath, living in the present, driving down the road, letting, it's those quiet times where your soul speaks to you. And if your throat chakra, people think about the crown chakra being how the soul connects, which is very true. I mean, it connects through all of them, but the throat chakra is your soul speaking to you, literally speaking to you, and you can't hear it if you have all this going on.
That's right. And it's a good way to think about it. This is the spirit, this is the soul.
I have to tell you something funny. I just thought about this, but you know how I'm telling you that I'm learning to sit in silence. I have a habit of talking to myself. If it's too quiet and I'm walking, or I do it all the time, even at the grocery store, in the car, at home, I will be talking to myself because I am so not used to that silence. I need to clear my throat chakra. People think I'm crazy.
So the third eye, I always think about a lot of the work that I do with Hecate, because that's a goddess that really helped me with my intuition and trusting my intuition. And one of the biggest blockers that I've noticed of our intuition is not trusting our intuition, diminishing our intuition, talking ourselves out of our intuition.
As she reiterates that and accentuates that with me.
Well, also with myself. I mean, there's so many situations that I could look back in my life, and I had that spark in the beginning, and I felt it, and I was like, this is not a healthy situation. And then I started being like, well, they're human too, and they've been through a lot of stuff. And yes,
especially with narcissists, because that's where you doubt it. And in another, I'm going to revert to another episode. We talk about intuition versus intellect, and what intuition is, and the outside forces, and how even looking at somebody for a while, speaking to somebody, you're listening to them, affects your intuition. So yeah, we explored that. I agree. That's
I'm saying about the higher ones. I feel like this is a place of unity. There's a lot of separation that goes on in the magical world, in the spirit world, just out of the teachings alone. And there's nothing wrong with the way they're taught. That's how you learn. But as we grow in our spiritual self, as we grow in our practices, and we learn, I like to say, yes, I'm both a witch and a wizard. Like,
Yeah.
alchemy to me is just as deep and just as important as magic. But there are certain people in the community that don't like people to say that. They get frustrated because they want to stay in the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do that. We have to have space for all of it, and be like, hey, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be a pagan witch. You don't have to be a esoteric practitioner to be a wizard. Like when you look into a lot of dragon magic or different types of alchemy, that's what you come across. You come across a lot of esoteric stuff, like seals of Solomon, things like that. But which, of course, I study myself, and it's been life changing to know these things. But it doesn't
Right.
mean every person is going to walk that path. Look at Merlin. You can work with the wizard in so many forms. Druidry, in a big way, is like earth wizardry. It really is. There's such an alchemy to it because it really, really changes people. And I think that's the core of the difference when I look at the two. Magic is something I practice. Alchemy is something I transmute. Alchemy is the change, the deep internal change. And I think in the deep internal change in our chakra system, it happens here in a big way. In our lower system, we're building a foundation, we're growing belief in ourselves, we're connecting to community. This is where we're transmuting. We're turning lead into gold. We're
Right.
really moving
Making
that
the
energy in
change.
such, yes, in such
Making that
big
change because
ways.
you can do magic and it'll fix this problem or it'll create something but it's going to stick if you change, if you actually form something new, it's going to stick. Then you
Yeah.
don't have to constantly maintain. You can spend that energy on something else that you want to change. But
Yes.
that change is what really your goal is, if you think about it,
Blackness.
you know.
Yeah. With a third eye in the middle. Because when I think about this, we're talking about the Akash, we're talking about the ethereal. To me, the ethereal is expansive blackness. It is always expanding, it does not contract, it just expands. And that's what I feel about our higher ones. They are always expanding. Because once we start moving into that space where we're connecting to the Akash, we're connecting to the ethereal, it's not about the human experience anymore alone. You know,
Right.
this isn't about where am I laying a foundation, where can people understand me. This is a place where you're connecting to your higher self, to your guides, to your gods, to your energies. A lot of the other spaces, what's beautiful when we talk about these two worlds connecting is a great place of the ancestors, right? The
Hmm.
ancestors connect in so many ways because they walked an earthly life first,
Right.
and now they're guiding you in a very spiritual way. But I know when my ancestors are tapping on me, I tend to feel it more in my shoulders, in my chest. I feel a warmth that kind of comes over me. But when I'm connecting to the ether, to the Akash, when I'm receiving a download, let's say, big part of what I do is receiving messages from the other worlds, right? But when I'm receiving a message from someone who's passed on versus when I'm receiving message straight from the Akash, straight from
Hmm.
ethereal, they don't have the same vibration. They don't have the same feeling.
It is different.
It's very subtle, very
Mhm.
subtle. I don't feel like I'm getting smacked in the head because sometimes my ancestors do be doing that.
I know. I've been smacked in the head and knocked on the butt a couple of times by my ancestors, and I told you so is what I hear all the time from them. But
Once we move into the crown, I don't think there is any place to separate. This is when it is the everything, you know, whether you call that the web of weird, you call that the mandala, you call that the yantra. There's so many different, or, you know, but this is it. This is where it all comes together. And it's both worlds. It's where spirit and soul are, and they go boom. And there are other chakras. If you continue to study, there are many more. Um, However, it's like the access we're talking about. You access this part, and then this part is selected. You know, this part is because I got into not really studies, but you found the right person who's done it. You found the right being on this planet that says, "Do you want to go beyond that?" And the crown, I always feel like the crown is just such a place of comfort and such a place of connection. You know, like you like when you're in ritual or you're in a circle and the music is just at that pitch, the drums are just and there's chanting going on and nobody's saying a word, and all you can feel is that resonance, that beautiful vibration of pure connection. That to me is the crown. And it's in so many different places. You know, sometimes when I'm taking a shower and I will just continue to say mama's name in several different ways, and I'll close my eyes and I feel that same resonance, that same increasing, so much beyond comfort. There's almost not even a human word for what you feel when you work with the crown chakra. You know, it's where we go way beyond the human, and now
Mm-hmm.
we're just this being. We're just this, you know, they call, some people call it light being, some people say it's your higher self. Whatever it is beautiful. It's called the thousand petal lotus. You know, how do you move from two petals to a thousand petals? And that's another thing. When you look into the chakra system, you'll learn that each one of these points are a flower, and they have so many petals on them. Well, I feel like because when we're moving with our intuition, it is about focus. It
Mm-hmm.
is about trusting this one space that says, I know, and nothing anyone says can change that knowing, right? It is unshakable. Versus when you're looking at this beautiful thousand petal lotus, it's about the infinite. It's about the everything. It's not just my intuition, it's every being's ever created. It's there are no human words.
Right, right. And I
There-
believe too that the higher self is a way, I believe that's the umbilical cord to the soul. The higher self is the part that opens everything up. And I always, I, you know, I don't necessarily believe things are here, here, and here, but I use it because that's the only way I can communicate, you know what I'm saying. But I believe the higher self is what opens us up to everything, which resides around the crown chakra.
yeah.
So
You know, and we say that the crown is like right here, the actual, the energy space, which is where when we're born, that's our soft spot.
a soft spot. Isn't that
And it's
neat?
something to think about. Like, as we're in our mother's womb and we're being created and we're being brought into this life, we're directly plugged in. You know, there's no experience like birth or death. No other experience in the world, in the
Right.
human cycle, as these two things that come the beginning and what we consider to be the ending, through the human perception. But we know, for those of us who get, you know, who understand that death is just another transference, it's just another way to move. We're just, think about a little bitty baby is plugged into that umbilical cord, and that's just a beautiful way with what you just said. It is like the umbilical cord, because that little energy spot is right there. That, be careful with the baby, don't be careful with the soft spot.
Give her with a soft spot. Yeah.
How many times have you heard that holding the baby? I'll never forget the first time. I mean, it literally gave me anxiety. Like I didn't want to hold a kid forever because I thought
I know. And you know what? There are some faiths that um believe, like, for example, in hoodoo, going to the graveyard, going to a gravesite, you cover your head because it leaves you open for spirits, to attach. So you cover your head. But there's a lot of faiths that, you cover your head.
well, it's the same, like, there's certain times, and it's just been spirit alone telling me that, or an ancestor telling me that, but I've gone to leave to go do readings all day. And right before I walk out the door, spirit will be like, or the ancestor will be like, hey, I need you to put a bandana or a cloth over your third eye today. And it hasn't
Oh,
happened
yeah.
many times, but when it does, I very much listen because I realize this
Mhm.
is another way. Because you can't do readings and shut your third eye out. It doesn't really work, does it? You're not
No.
using your intuitive energies. But when they say, hey, it might be because you're going to come across somebody who will pull from that, or it might be because you're going to exhaust from whatever readings you're doing. But if you ever feel a gentle nudge or even a nice push from the other side, be that ancestor spirit or the gods, and they say, cover your head today,
Hmm.
listen, because there's a reason for it. These are very, all of our energy centers are sensitive.
Hmm.
100%. All of our energy centers are
Do
sensitive.
you
So
have?
as we're talking about the crown chakra and it being the thousand petal lotus and it being the resonance of everything, um, we're gonna actually end on that. And what I mean by that is I'm gonna have everyone just kind of sit back and close your eyes, and I'm gonna make some higher sounds and just see what you feel and allow yourself to connect to the everything, to the great web, to the mandala. Keep your eyes closed. Take some deep breaths. Allow yourself to feel exactly this moment. And that's why I say the crown doesn't have definition.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for coming on here and sharing that with us. And my hope is for everyone out there watching to understand how important it is for these energy points, to be open and to be, as I say, aligned or in tune, and how they're all important in connecting to your soul. Because if you do not have the base, the bottom, the foundation, and on this earthly plane, right? If you don't have that, it's going to affect and distract from the upper, and of course the center point is I was going to say most important, but really they're all important, all of them. Okay,
Yeah.
I would like to have you just explain some of the things that I know you have something exciting coming up using the chakra system.
Yeah, so I'm actually working on building a recovery system using the principles of the chakra system. And what I mean by recovery, I mean it does not matter if you're in addiction recovery, or if you're addicted to sex, or if you've had issues with codependency, or if you're in trauma recovery. We're all recovering from something. That there's so many beautiful things about this system that work into the same thing as what we're doing when we're working in recovery. We are meeting ourselves right where we're at. We're looking at the parts of ourselves that are quite frightening and scary. And I have a lot coming up, but this is definitely my passion, is to bring these two worlds together. We need so much more out there because,
And how do people get in touch with you?
oh, sure. So if you want to shoot me an email, that's rootstochalice@gmail.com, of course. And if you want to check out some of my social media platforms, you can see, again, Roots to Chalice on Facebook, or Prism Hopes on TikTok. You can watch a lot of my stuff there. And not really a website person. I really feel that the people that I'm meant to work with will find me always. And maybe that'll change in the future. I don't know, but thus far, not really a thing. So, yeah, that's how you find me. And if you want to talk, if you're interested in working with me, I will definitely be answering my messages. Shoot me an email. I definitely look at them at least twice a week.
You're like me. I got to peek every once in a while. Well, great. Well,
And
thank you again
you're
for
so
being
welcome.
here. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
That concludes another episode of Soul Connection. In this episode, we discussed the top 3 chakras. And if you missed the last one, I encourage you to watch it as well, because all of the chakras, keeping them healthy, are so important in connecting to your soul. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Blessed be.